I'm going to try to get as much information as I can from the Steamforged Games crew on Monster Hunter World Iceborne, coming to Kickstarter very soon. We have displayed in front of us Monster Hunter World. This is actually one of the many core boxes that just arrived from the first initial Kickstarter. And we've been diving into it. And I have to say, I'm more than a little excited about this next announcement and the next release. So, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. I'm a duck. This is a flamingo. And you two are some lovely gents from across the pond, right?
Do I have to be an animal?
I think so.
I mean, I want to be a badger.
You're a badger.
Yeah.
Love it. Honey badger
Badgers
or just like traditional?
No, a proper English
proper
badger.
badger, yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah.
I'll be an English bulldog then.
Nice.
Okay,
Oh, nice.
We've got a badger and a bulldog. Please introduce
Love
yourself. And before I start pining you with questions, and I do have my staple expert here.
Yes,
we'll have
resident
him.
expert.
We'll have our flamingo jump in just a second. Please give people all the information you're comfortable giving them about Iceborne, and then we'll find out information that you didn't.
That you're not
agree to share
comfortable
with
giving
us,
with us.
by asking pointed questions, because I'm actually really thrilled about the next expansion into this universe, because I'm going to spend the next 6 months to a year playing through and beating every boss you've thrust in front of me. Yes, it might take me that long to
Playing
beat
through.
some of them specifically. How dare you?
What you mean is
how dare you?
running through. The boss is running through us because we will die
That's true.
constantly.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that's
Okay.
usually what happens.
Introduce yourself. Let people know who you are, why you're here in the stateside, and what Iceborne is all about.
I'm Matt Hart. I'm the co-founder and creative director at Steamforged Games. I get to work with the awesome team of product owners and visual team, and that's a good segue into Jamie.
Yep, and I am Jamie Perkins. I'm the product owner for the Monster Hunter World brand for Steamforged Games, and I also act as the lead designer for Monster Hunter World Iceborne.
Very cool. Very cool. And all the information you're comfortable giving us at the moment?
Is written down in my notebook, and beyond that, we're not going to go.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're going to dig holes in your trenches.
Or
What?
we will get killed by China.
What is going on here with Iceborne? I know some of the initial content that you've told me, and you haven't let a lot slip, actually. But you've let me know that this is going to be another standalone in the Monster Hunter World archive. Like, for instance, in the original Kickstarter, you have 2 standalone base boxes. We've started diving into one of them. We haven't even touched the other one. I don't know that we need to. We've got like 30 hours of content here on this initial dive. But you've said the mechanics are going to be slightly different to cater towards what's happening in the Iceborne world, and this Kickstarter is in and of itself a starting point. It's an initial point. You don't need to worry about the content from this other release to jump into the Iceborne archive or the Iceborne storyline. So you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. So Iceborne's going to come to Kickstarter in May. So it's not far away. We're all super excited and working terribly hard towards getting people aware of the project and why they should kind of take a look at it.
Okay. I'll have some type of link down below where they can follow.
Perfect. You've alluded to one of the really important things, which is Monster Hunter World is currently getting rave reviews. People are loving it, having an awesome time. We played a game earlier, had a brilliant time. You guys sound like you're thoroughly enjoying it, which makes us happy. But the old adage of what's better than one good thing, 2 good things, it doesn't always extend. So what we really wanted to make sure is we took the parts of Monster Hunter World that are really making people excited and then create a different experience. So Monster Hunter Iceborne is a familiar yet very different experience to Monster Hunter World. So the
really goal
gives...
is not just an expansion into the franchise.
Yeah.
It's that this is a unique game on its own, alongside something that is a unique game in and of itself.
I think that would have been the obvious kind of route to go down. But I do think the more Jamie and I sort of chatted about it, the more obvious it became to us that creating this standalone, different experience gives fans of Monster Hunter a real reason to kind of get into Iceborne, play through Iceborne, and get a whole different experience.
So my tactical segue, and you all can watch as these guys squirm a little bit. Wes Todd, an individual who's played through Monster Hunter World, and played through Monster Hunter World Iceborne.
A good portion, yes.
You want to talk about some of the stark differences, some of the experiences you had in Iceborne that were different from the core game of World, some of the things these guys might have to pay attention to when designing or creating the world of Iceborne?
Absolutely. There's one thing that everyone's going to
Good luck,
talk
guys.
about, and that's going to be the claw, and the good old clagger. If you don't know what that is, that's basically a mechanic that was given in Iceborne that allows you to use this beautiful, amazing weapon that basically is like a grappling hook that you can grab onto the monster itself, and you can then pull yourself in and do amazing amounts of damage. You can smash the head of the beast into the local wall. You can keep a winged animal down on the ground. It was just a really cool mechanic and an awesome thing that some people claim broke the system. Not all of those people, but some people. And I think where it went wrong was going back and playing the old version, because you got one way of just doing tons of amazing amounts of damage. But in the actual Iceborne system, when you were in there, it was very mechanical and very tailored to those specific monsters, and you had to do it a very specific way, and it worked beautifully. And so how are you implementing the claw? Because if you tell me you're not, then just get out right now, because I don't believe you. I know you have to use the claw in this game, because it is the major thing that made Iceborne so unique and different.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's an iconic part of what makes the Iceborne experience, so it's absolutely baked into the core identity of the board game for Iceborne. Absolutely.
Was that involved in the conversation around making this a standalone product as opposed to like an expansion that locks into the world system that you already have?
Absolutely part of it.
Absolutely. Kind of as you were saying in the video game there, it made the Iceborne experience of the monsters was suited to working with the clutch claw and making that sort of a composed experience together. And that's exactly what we've done with the board game, is with the monsters themselves act a little bit differently. Every hunter has access to the clutch claw from the beginning in their base deck, so it's part of the attack deck that you actually start off with in the game.
Love it.
And it gets better with you as your hunter progresses throughout the game, but the monsters themselves are suited to be able to play against you with the clutch claw, with your enhanced enhanced abilities.
And the other major thing that, in my opinion, made Iceborne very different from Monster Hunter World, was that the ground underneath you sometimes gave away in your massive battles. So when you were walking over, all of a sudden you're walking on an ice shelf, and then boom, the ground underneath you would just destroy and go away. Are you able to bring that into this amazing game as well?
Yeah. So through the timer deck, there are you're going to see more events that capture moments like that.
Love it.
A lot of those events are going to actually be introduced to the timer deck through your actions through the hunting phase or the narrative side of the game. So your choices have consequences that will affect the gameplay. But yes, you're going to get that big cinematic moment where you flip the card over and suddenly the world has changed, and you need to adapt to the new game state and respond to it.
I love it.
So you've mentioned that Iceborne here is going to be different from Monster Hunter World.
Yes.
In what ways are we talking? Are we talking like we have, of course, the grappling hook? You said it gets mixed into the base deck. You say that the events are going to be, we're going to have maybe more of them or different ones that we're interacting with. But that still sounds like some of the similar mechanics that we have in base game. Where are we starting to step away? What's the experience going to be like that differentiates itself from these core boxes?
So I think conceptually the way a good analogy to use is you have a game that you love, like a video game, and you play it, and then they announce that they're bringing out the next version of it. If they brought out the exact same game with the exact same story and the exact same mechanics, you'd be like, oh, okay.
I can think of a few that have done that.
I can definitely
right. But if it's a new story with a new experience, and it's got and it still has a lot of the elements that you really enjoy, but looked at in a different way, it suddenly becomes a much fresher, more enticing experience, and it gives you a much more compelling reason to spend some time playing with it. And at the end of the day, we're not necessarily competing for people's dollars. We've all got dollars in our bank for our hobby. We're competing for time, and for us at Steamforge, it's incredibly important that we are respectful of people's gaming time, and so we want to make sure we're giving really meaningful experiences when you sit down and play one of our games.
So what are some of the experiences that you mechanically or thematically that are going to be slightly different in this version of the game?
So one of the ones we really wanted to focus down on is the concept of how you learn about the monster throughout the hunt, throughout the gathering phase as you go towards the monster. So in World, you have these tracking tokens over here, which I'll just show up the camera. So when you're finding these throughout, when you're searching through, instead of sometimes gaining resources, you're getting these tracking tokens instead. And what these do in World is that when you flip them over, they help you basically randomize.
We got a -2 one time. We had 4.
Yeah.
I just want to complain for a second.
I mean,
we had 4.
get good.
Right? We got 3 1s and a -2. I wanted to stab somebody.
Yeah, it was rough.
And I did later. The creature that we were fighting, the Quackalope, didn't last very long.
Sometimes you follow a trail and it's just a false trail.
You were saying though, sorry, I had a moment. I had to express myself to the people that were responsible.
No problem. So what other chance are you gonna get? So in World, these help you randomize what's going on in the monster's behavior deck, and they add a replayability element to that game. In Iceborne, what they're going to do instead of having these numbers on the back is they'll have a random selection of icons of different things that you can do during the hunting phase. So say you've collected like 5 or 10 of these, one of them might be, I can spend this token during my turn to get extra damage, or we haven't got enough turns, let's get an extra hunter turn to this. It's representing what you've learned about that monster on the way to go and finding them and fighting them. And it gives you a very different experience about finding these tracking tokens.
That's cool.
From a high level design philosophy, though, it also, because these are a central pool of mini buffs that are situationally useful, it becomes another conversation piece. Because it is a cooperative game, because we're all working together, it becomes another opportunity for us to say, well, I've got a really cool combo. I'm going to grab that kind of +1 damage, or a redraw on the damage, because it makes a huge difference. And we're always looking for opportunities to stop the game becoming like a siloed isolation exercise and becoming a team-based effort.
And one of the things we're experimenting with as well is making these tracking tokens like a cost of some of the better elements of the time deck. So something might happen that's an event that you've shuffled in. This is an event card, but let's pretend it is. That you've shuffled in and go, that's a really cool ability, but it requires you to spend some track tokens to make it happen. So saving some of these, not necessarily for the effect that they have, but to be able to affect those.
Holding on to them during the actual gameplay itself.
Yeah. Well, and also if you've got a +2 damage and a take an extra turn, but that effect is kind of cool. It's another interesting decision.
So it's not just customizing the creature's deck, but and also I can imagine when you're exploring, you might make different decisions as opposed to rushing towards the creature.
Correct.
If what you're gaining could be something like grab an extra turn or get this extra buff, you might be willing to spend a little bit more time on your exploration as opposed to just getting to the creature quickly.
And it does it's like an emergent kind of narrative that then happens that the action that you take then manifests itself in the actual boss fight, and that becomes quite powerful because it is unique to you. You remember the decision you made.
So
you
one
remember
of
the
my
token you got.
only criticisms of this game right now is the fact that I don't often come across the things that I find while going through the event deck. They either get discarded or they get cycled too quickly or they get shuffled and disappear. So is there going to be something that gives me maybe a little bit more of the thematic ties? I'm a story-based player at my heart. So I love the narrative. I love the framework of the game that it sets up. I enjoy the boss battle quite a bit, but I'd like to see the consequences of my actions happen a little bit more.
Yeah, so what we want to do is...
I saw a nod. I saw you can talk about it.
It's like, you got this, Jay. So we want to have a...
That's what I'm looking for.
we want to have a tighter sort of connection between what's going on in the narrative of the hunting phase and then... So the narrative of the gathering phase, and then the action of the hunting phase.
Okay.
So literally your actions in the gathering phase have consequences.
Outside of just these hunt tokens.
Correct
Okay.
As well. So this will, like the event cards that Matt mentioned earlier and other elements that will happen is that you've run into something, you hear a roar, something in the background. That might not necessarily be the monster that you're hunting. Something else might happen on top of that that's going to have an impact during the hunting phase as well.
Now, one other thing that you mentioned, you keep talking about event cards and events that are happening. Those are different than the time tokens or the time cards. Is that what you're saying? Or
so
two separate things?
We cunningly call them blue cards and red cards internally.
I love
largely because of the colour of the icon. But so timer cards are cards that you need to mill every time a player takes an action, and they often have additional effects or consequences. But they're more of an end of player turn ceremony reminder that you need to kind of discard your cards, draw back up, do all that kind of stuff, and then there might be an additional effect. An event card, which is color coded with a red icon, is more of a set piece. This has happened, and it manifestly changes the board state or the game state. What this kind of system allows us to do is really start to explore. Well, what if you create an event in one hunt that then actually comes over and doesn't manifest until 2 or 3 or 4 hunts later, and then you're like, that guy that we saw up on the viewing platform with the long telescope, and now he's appeared over here, and suddenly he's kind of pointed out that this thing is happening. Well, again, that's really sort of feeding into that.
It sounds like it could either be a fun Easter egg or it could be a really good part of the campaign. Like either this fun little payoff where you remember it and you saw it, or you've been building towards this and it really solidifies.
Yeah, I mean, in our experience, players are so smart. They're so on the ball, and they see these things happening, and they create that kind of like synaptic leap between where we did X and Y happened. Brilliant, you know, I love it, and it just underlines and emphasizes that narrative kind of sense, and that for me is Iceborne is that narrative cinematic experience. Monster Hunter World is that deep tactical, you know, head to head against a big boss. Iceborne has elements of that, of course, but you know, it has that narrative kind of focus to give you that different experience.
So I will agree with you, because I know you're already going to say this, that is it 13 core characters in the base game?
14.
So in the core box you get 4.
Yeah.
But there are 14 hunters.
14 total.
14 overall. Yeah.
So we've seen about 6 of them in operation.
Yeah.
And so far, they all seem very unique. They all play very unique. And they really do emphasize the custom builds that you get from the Monster Hunter World franchise. Because Monster Hunter World has a few big things going for it, the video game franchise. One is unique, crazy boss fights that are different from other games in the way that they like use the terrain and move around the board and throw your characters around. And then the other thing is that harvesting, gathering, create your own unique gear, and it has, I would argue, has revolutionized the way that people approach the idea of crafting and building weapon configurations in the video game world. There's a lot of video games that I think would attribute inspiration to the way that they rethink or reimagine the idea of like a greatsword because of the way Monster Hunter World is played with it and played with it in relation to
and previous
features.
iterations of Monster Hunter.
That's what I'm saying. Not just World,
Just
but
Monster Hunter in general.
Yeah. Has played with not only the variations of the greatsword, but the variations that you get from the different types of creatures you're killing and then crafting into the weapons that you use.
There's a delicious loop that happens though that if you want to explore a certain direction with your two-handed sword, that informs the kind of monster hunts that you want to go on.
Absolutely.
Which creates that kind of unique unique journey that you
have
go
a
on
personal
for World or for Iceborne.
nemesis and a personal like creature that you're fighting off and like resources you need to harvest and you need the faceplate of this one beast for the big like the big like stone blade that you have to carve into
Exactly
it.
right, yeah.
So, and that's the same in the video game. However, I do know in board game design 14 unique asymmetric characters that play
easy
unto themselves.
Yeah.
You're coming from the base.
Only 14.
You're coming from the base of having already designed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you were working on Monster Hunter World, the board game, before Iceborne actually existed in the ethosphere.
Yeah.
And so you were designing from the perspective of, this is the game we're working with. This is what we have.
Yeah.
How are you going to make characters in this new game feel unique or feel different or feel customized to the experience you're playing? And not just iterations on like the core concepts we already have.
So that is a great question, and I, for one, am really looking forward to the answer.
It is a great question. It is a great question. Part of that is we get a big leg up from the monsters that are involved in when you face against them. So the monsters that you face in World will sort of control the kind of weaponry you can build. As you already said, you craft pieces from you carve the pieces from them, then you can craft those weapons, craft Diablos gear, craft Nergigante gear, etc.
This is part of the conversation where they're like, "Oh, Jesse has questions that we didn't anticipate."
This wasn't on our prep list.
No. Why am I stuck to this chair suddenly? Like, so we get a big leg up already because of the nature of Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter World Iceborne is the fact that they have these inherent monsters that you're going to create weapons from. They already give you a dramatically different experience. So the monster cast that appears in Iceborne is going to be different to the one that you see in World. That immediately gives you different weapon experiences and different armor experiences that you can upgrade. These extra special rules you get on the armor pieces you craft immediately tells you a lot of different things. On top of that, we've kind of taken like a little bit of a leap in terms of where your base deck begins in the game as well. So your hunters will still, so your greatsword hunter will still feel like a greatsword hunter. So will your heavy bowgun feel like a heavy bowgun hunter.
And that's true in the base game. Like that's true in the games that we have right now. We have variations on some core models where at the very beginning they feel they feel like the type of character they are. But as you start upgrading and going down their progression chains, you start getting things like a Gatling gun arrow machine, and it's very different from the other like more targeted,
it's much more personal.
precise.
Yeah.
So as part of kind of reflecting that your base level of gear in Iceborne is just naturally high, you start bringing in master rank weapons and gear and all that kind of stuff as well. Is that the base decks of each hunter has evolved a little bit from World, so it plays in a different way. It'll still feel like that hunter, but they'll play in a different way than what they did before. It would be kind of hard to go through all 14 different hunters of how they play differently, but just, take me in that.
Sure.
Because canonically, Iceborne happens after you've finished the world.
Right.
And you're like tier, what is it, 9, 10, something like that, 11?
Yeah.
I think it's 11,
11
right?
plus, I think.
Yeah. And then you go into, you have ground your soul trying to get all these amazing weapons, and then you go into Iceborne and you're like, hey, the first thing I craft is 10 times better.
Tier 4, tier 8.
Yeah. So you have to still be able to give some of that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Like as you start.
Yep,
And it's also part of the reason I'm assuming why you can't why Iceborne is not something that you're going to go back and say, oh yeah, you could take these Iceborne characters and play Monster Hunter World, because it will break the
You're
system.
underestimating the ability of homebrew.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's
Just
very
throwing
true.
that out there.
Homebrew's going to do what homebrew does.
It's true.
Well, look, what's interesting though is from our perspective, we know the homebrew exists. We celebrate it. We do it ourselves.
Sure.
We hack our own home games, no problem. So it actually enables us to be braver and to really focus on making Iceborne a different experience to World, knowing that people who are really excited about the idea of that journey, that backwards journey, or that sideways journey,
together.
however you want to describe it, they are able to do that because the core structure of the game is similar, but we don't need to worry about trying to accommodate that.
If you tried to make everything cross-compatible,
Oh, dude.
like I've seen other games do, you would have had to sacrifice what can be unique and different for the sake of this, which the video game learned.
The video game learned the hard way. Yes, I believe.
Any core fans out there, you know what we're talking about. We'll leave it at that. But we'll
just call it Krager. Okay?
There's some mixed stuff that is happening.
It's a challenging thing to do. It's even more challenging when you're talking about physical product versus the digital product, because you can deploy a new digital build quite easily.
You can just hit that little update button.
Do that.
Right?
You brought up creatures. So now I'm going to start asking about creatures. Don't flinch too much. Yeah. Okay, so Iceborne had.
This is the bit that he really enjoys, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Yeah, we'll just talk about what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
He doesn't know we might also enjoy it, but that's fine. We'll pretend. I'm so nervous.
That's fine.
Okay, so Iceborne did two things.
Yeah.
One, it introduced a whole arsenal of new creatures to fight and hunt. And two, kind of like Monster Hunter World does, or Monster Hunter the genre does. I'm using them interchangeably, I shouldn't be. Monster Hunter the genre usually has variations on creatures. You find them in different regions, you find them at different levels. You've already played with that a bit. Usually every creature has something like 3 different tiers, and that changes their personality, changes how they interact with you. Their deck scales accordingly. But here in Iceborne, are we talking brand new creatures that are unique to the world of Iceborne? Or are we talking some of the fan favorite variations that we've seen coming from the Monster Hunter World framework and making them unique for this gameplay scenario?
Do we need huddle?
We're talking about both. So there's going to be elements of those monsters that come back again and have, like you said, a different version. So I'm just going to
do it.
Fine. Coral Pookie Pookie is a good example of one that you'll see. There's another that is Pookie Pookie is in.
That was not approved. I mean, it was just now. But he's going to get in trouble. So.
On the fly,
Is in.
Dear China. Sorry.
Sorry.
I couldn't stop him.
During this next response, not sorry. So Coral Pookie Pookie is a version of Pookie Pookie that appears in Monster Hunter World Iceborne, whereas you wouldn't get the regular version of Pookie Pookies that's in Wilds by a Waste of World. But then you also have monsters that have come in for Iceborne that weren't in World in the first place, like Nagakuga.
Okay. I like names, Wes.
Names are good.
Any other big hard-hitting questions?
Yes, there's one very important question.
At the moment.
There's one very important question. Well, there's two, actually. There's two important questions. The first one, the most important question is, am I going to get to decorate a house?
Ooh.
Am I going to get to decorate a house? Don't tell me no, because come on now. Okay, am I going to get to decorate a house?
You talked about homebrew rules earlier.
Yeah.
Using your homebrew rules, which we would like to see a copy of.
What would that even look like?
I have no
First
idea.
off, I didn't like the home decoration.
You don't care about home decoration,
I don't
Jesse.
at all.
It's not important to you.
Okay.
But,
One of the things
Can
I
I
find
take
fascinating.
away his permission to ask questions? Because that was a dumb question.
It was a great question.
You want to whisper your second question to
No,
me?
I still want... Am I going to get a 3D pop-up book? Can I put some stickers on it?
No! What are you
Come
talking
on.
about?
Fine.
You're not doing a 3D pop-up book, are you?
No,
Yet.
not currently
Yet.
planned.
Okay,
no.
great.
Yet?
All right.
Okay.
Never
All
say
right,
never, but...
the last one is going to be one of the things that that people really, really loved. Okay, and this might be a challenge to do. I totally get how it might be a challenge. But cross-IP people, right? Cross-IP characters. I know that they had Assassin's Creed, and in Hunter in World there was The Witcher and other people like that.
Horizon.
Yep, Horizon was in there too. Are we going to have the opportunity maybe to see some of those? Is it possible?
I'm gonna latch onto your question from just someone who understands this industry a little bit and has worked with quite a few IPs at this point. How hard would that actually be?
So this is one of the facets of my job that I talk about less kind of in public, like the business development side of things. So from a legal perspective,
it's already been in the video game.
It's much harder.
Really?
But the fact that it's already been in the video game means that path has already been walked.
Yeah, there's a bridge, right?
So it's possible. So do we know the right people to talk to ask the question? Yes. Should we? I don't know, because there's whilst that path has already been trod, doesn't necessarily mean it's a short or an easy or a cheap path to follow along.
Fair.
You might start down it and realize they didn't actually like the...
Correct.
Because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe some of the IPs were
Assassin's
removed.
Creed got taken away from us.
So
don't go down that route.
Yeah, that's probably not
something happened there that we don't want to uncover.
So it's one of those things that if I'm at an event or I'm with one of our IP partners and I get to have a chat, it's definitely something I would academically like to know what the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
But until I know what the answer is, I really couldn't say whether it's possible or not possible.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, the last one. I got one more. I got one more.
Are they as good as the first two?
They're way better. This is way better. Okay, so another thing about Monster Hunter World and Iceborne was events, was seasonal events. Like where we had an opportunity to do cool things,
because there's a big,
fun, exciting opportunity.
Had a supported massive.
Yeah, like Halloween was awesome because you everything was decorated that way. I get that that's probably not possible in this, but are there opportunities for us to celebrate it as a community or something together where we could do, after the game is done, can we do something fun with it as a community together? Is that something that could potentially be supported?
I do have to indicate what I am hearing now from West is that he will own everything you've ever created for the Monster Hunter universe, and he's going to be transitioning from playing online to playing on the tabletop, and he wants more.
I want more. And that is right and proper to do.
You haven't even given him everything yet, and he's still like, "Can I just have more, please?"
I just want more.
Right and proper thing to do.
That's a good question.
So Jamie and I were chatting about this very recently. So this is hot off the press. But we are super excited about what can we do that emulates that kind of event-based community activity. We've got at least 3 or 4 very cool ideas. I don't know which one's the best idea yet.
So the thought is, as a publisher, to approach this game as something that might be supported beyond just like the retail or the Kickstarter release specifically.
It's very much like a community management or community event.
Because other companies do that with things like war games or tactical like card games and stuff like that, right? Because you have you have events where you have head-to-head duels, you have like magic type of events where you have people get together for...
like a minis game might have a rotation, so, or a card game more typically would have a rotation where cards will rotate in and rotate out. Essentially what they're doing is looking to affect the meta of the game on a competitive landscape, but there's a huge amount of engagement, which as a gamer and gamers...
Your Facebook group's at like 3,500 active... members, right?
Yeah. And we're actually interacting more and more with people on our Discord channel, which is absolutely worth checking out. There's a huge amount of activity, and one of the things that hopefully will come across when people join the Discord and start hanging out with us is all of us are on there. We all enjoy talking about games because deep down we are just nerdy gamers.
Board gamers.
First
is
and foremost.
Anyone in this? I mean, maybe if we get up to like the people that are still like reprinting Monopoly. Yes. But is anyone in this industry not a hobbyist at heart?
I hope not.
That would make me sad.
How could you be? How could you be?
I hope
We're
not.
this scrappy little like growing production house.
I think the reason is that you do this because you love it. Yeah. If you wanted to make just fat stacks, go and work in video games or something else. This is about the love of getting together with people that you know or don't know, having a real world interactive experience with other people, and just having fun. That for me is the magic of tabletops.
And that's coming from someone who had, 20 years in the video game industry before you went into the board game industry?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
So, the last question.
Sure.
Last question. For both of you. And I want a real answer here.
Okay.
I want a real answer.
Go on, Jeremy.
I want it from both of you. Approaching this campaign, approaching this Kickstarter, what are you single-handedly the most excited about? I want to answer from both of you.
And it can't be the same thing.
It can't be the same thing. Approaching this project, what are you looking forward to the most?
I think for me, it's quite a mechanical thing, which is the fans right now the backers of World are receiving their World pledges.
Yeah.
So what's kind of happening,
as we speak, I think.
Right, and they're being super excited about it and playing the game a lot, and that's great. So what's kind of happening right now is those gamers are, whilst enjoying themselves, training themselves how this game system works. Which means, from a really nerdy perspective, when we're doing things like blogs, articles, Kickstarter updates, etc., anything that we do to talk about the game, I can talk kind of at length about in-depth new mechanical things that they will understand because they get the basic.
They have this framework.
They understand how the Monster Hunter World system
Whereas
works.
originally you were introducing them to the idea and the concept.
Exactly. So I'm excited to make other people excited about the new things that we're doing with Iceborne because they'll be able to get it from the beginning.
Cool.
That's cool.
I've got multiple personalities when it comes to answering this question. So from a
I'll take them all.
So from a business owner perspective and from a team leader perspective, one of the things that excites me about every Kickstarter we do, so this is the next one in the hopper, is seeing the team learning from what we've learned before and applying it to a new project.
Yeah.
And absolutely, mistakes will be made. You know, we're talking about quite complicated, quite deep, lots of moving part style projects. So there will always be things that happen, but the fact that they're different each time is the bit that kind of tells me that we're progressing. And we work incredibly hard, and we're incredibly harsh on ourselves about the things that we didn't like about what we did previously, and making sure that we've got ways and means of not doing the same thing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing, the progression of the team and showing how we can run Kickstarters and projects consistently better and better each time. So I'm really interested on that, but that's not super exciting. I think the super exciting bit that I'm really looking forward to, and I'm going to say it very quickly and then stop, and you never get another word out of my mouth.
Oh no!
Is when you
Why did I make this the last question?
Is when you see situations like this where there are two monsters on the board.
What?